This is Spike Hayes. Spike is president of the Pelham Historical Society. Exciting days, Spike. Understand that the Historical Society's headquarters or home in Pelham is up for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places. You haven't heard yet, correct?
No, it's still pending. We're on the State Register of Historic Places, and the state has approved our application to be placed on the National Register. It's in Washington, pending with the National Park Service.
This building owes its existence to Civil War veterans of Pelham, correct?
That's true. In 1896, Pelham was going to celebrate its 150th anniversary. And at that point in time, which was roughly, well, when the idea came up, it was exactly 30 years after the end of the Civil War. And the Civil War veterans were pretty much the heart of the community at the time. And they decided that what Pelham really needed was a library, and by the way, you could also serve as a memorial to the Civil War veterans. And they, of course, were the Civil War veterans. The building committee was Charles William Hobbs, and he put together a committee, and they were aware of the fact that there was a son of Pelham named Frederick W. Stickney of the architectural firm was Stickney and Austin in Lowell and Boston, who in 1875 was an architecture student at MIT. And that was 10 years after the Civil War. And every year at MIT, the School of Architecture has a competition. And the challenge in 1875 was to design a small town library that would double as a memorial to the Civil War veterans. So they got Stickney, with his Pelham connections, to design the building. Based on, he won that competition in 1875. So based on his winning design, they came up with this one, modified to fit Pelham and the lot. And they built it for a little over $4,000. And one of the reasons, of course, was they had the free architect. The fancy woodwork that is in this building was donated by a guy named John Woods, who happened to be a Civil War veteran, and in 1895 was the mayor of Somerville, a part-time position. But he was also the owner of the largest specialty wood retail lumberyard in the greater Boston area. In other words, he sold all the fancy woodwork for the mansions of Boston. So he donated all the fancy woodwork that's found in this building. So it was a combination of $4,000 of taxpayer money, some cash contributions, an award-winning architect. You notice here there's a plaque listing our Civil War veterans.
I counted on their Spike 60 names.
All right, and there's some more over here on the left that they came up with apparently afterwards. But here's John Woods, who
That kind of shows what the Civil War meant to communities. I mean, you're looking here probably in the neighborhood of 75 citizens of Pelham who went off to war.
Yeah, I read somewhere where like 50 to 60% of those physically eligible and of the right age actually served at some point during the Civil War.
There are some great artifacts here, and I want to quickly show our viewers at eagletribune.com some of them. Let's take a look here first at an interesting piece of weaponry. This is it's
an authentic Civil War musket, and it has an interesting story. Its owner was Timothy Donovan. His daughter-in-law was Catherine Donovan, who taught in one of our one-room schoolhouses for over 50 years. And he was shot 3 times during the Civil War. Once the bullet just hit his vest and fell off. It wasn't going too far. And once he was getting ready to load his musket.
Can you show us what happened?
What happened was that they got shot, and the bullet lodged right in his musket, and the bullet is still there today. It wrapped around the ramrod and then embedded in the wood. And he talks about it in an interview that took place in the early 1900s in one of the local newspapers.
You have... Spike, I want to show our viewers something else here. This is an interesting case that's in here. And it contained at one time some letters.
I think the label on it, if I can read it to you, it says, "Property of the Hobbs family, letters of Charles William Hobbs to be given to direct descendants, Charles W. Hobbs and Samuel Hobbs.
And who was Mr. Hobbs?
Well, Mr. Hobbs is one of our more literate Civil War veterans. He wrote home faithfully to his mother, his father, his sister Mary Enoch Marsh.
This is his photo, I
That's
understand.
his photo. In 1917, he was the head of the department. He was the department commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, the GAR, for the District of New Hampshire. They call it the Department of New Hampshire on this particular document. And this is a page out of the book. The actual book is in the case.
He served throughout the Civil War and came from a well-to-do family, but found himself doing what during the Civil War?
Well, he was a grunt in the trenches. But that, I guess that's the way the military works. They had been told that he was literate, did math, had been trained as a surveyor. You would have thought they would have used him either more thinking position than being a grunt. Being essentially in the trenches.
So he saw a lot, and you've had a chance to look at some of these letters.
Well, I have them all.
And he tells in a lot of detail.
It's essentially a diary of his experiences during the Civil War. And his daughter, who everybody called Aunt Kinda, was a college professor in Westchester County, New York. And she transcribed all the letters, and then we published them in this little blue book here, Olden Days and Olden Ways. Anybody wants to buy a copy, it's fairly cheap. You can go to the Pelham Historical Society website and click on bookstore, and that book will pop up.
Tell me briefly, this is an interesting American flag. Where did this flag see action in our history?
This flag was given to the Historical Society by Bernice Bigelow, who was the choir director of the Congregational Church next door, and she got it from her great uncle. And this flag flew over the city of New Orleans after the Battle of New Orleans. And at that point in time, General Benjamin Butler from Lowell, Massachusetts, was the commander of the occupation forces. And this flag actually flew over New Orleans within a few weeks of the Battle of New Orleans. And it was passed down from members of Bernice Bigelow's family to, I guess, Aunt Kinda, and then Aunt Kinda gave it to well, somehow everything ends up at my house, and then I bring it back here.